This is Warsaw, but so is this. The right bank, my manor. So let me show you a few places. The right bank, then. It's a place of contrasts. Warsaw's East End and West End. A place of many modes of transportation and wild riverbanks. But what I want to show you first is a cemetery. A cemetery, you say? That's morbid. Well, firstly, you don't say morbid. You say mid to late Victorian. Also, I'm not dragging you down here for history or for the wonderful detail. Oh, don't cry, there will be some history later. Alright, this actually is spooky. But to show you a very Polish thing. You do visit your dear departed. Every Sunday is good, but whenever you can make it, really. As a result, it's very lively indeed. Trade is brisk. This gives you a taste of what Warsaw looked like in 1990s and early 2000s. One big marketplace. Only it wasn't flowers and candles, it was everything. So, this place is heaving and positively packed and ablaze with candles on All Hallows and All Souls, the 1st and 2nd of November. Poland isn't exactly a great destination in November, but if you do happen to be around, do come and see for yourself. It's unbelievable. The other thing about this place is it's like a vast park. Even with all those visitors around, you can just find a spot and listen to your own thoughts. I like it. But you would rather something livelier? Well, 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 I know just the place. Francuska, French Street, being the high street of Saska Kepa, which translates to Saxon clump, you know, as in clump of trees. Anyways, it's a restaurant and bar central. One of the best areas in town for it. Just walk along and take your pick. But does it have past? Do you even need to ask? Of course it does. Everything has a past. So here it goes. The Saxon clump took off under, surprise, surprise, Saxon kings of Poland in the 1700s as sort of a suburb of Warsaw. Somewhere across the river where you'd come for more or less innocent pleasures, away from the prying eyes of your neighbors in Warsaw proper. Except the said neighbors would be here for the same purpose, so it must have been some sort of what happens in Kempa stays in Kempa arrangement. And the first inn on record was right here. No trace of that now, but this house, first a villa, then some sort of French diplomatic outlet, is now a restaurant. Again, I do like it when history makes a full circle. Saska Kepa became Warsaw and was developed between the Great Wars. So, apart from the very early houses that can't decide what style they want to be, it is a modernist paradise. Just look at those clean, sharp lines. The simplicity. The occasional graceful curve. How can you not fall in love? It survived the Second World War relatively intact. Most houses have been renovated, but you can still see the bullet scars. They mainly date from the German invasion in 1939. Here stood one of the barricades that held out until the end of September 1939, but later on the Germans did not do much damage. By the summer of 1944, when they set out on their extremely well-organized and orderly campaign of blowing up the city, house by house, street by street, this side of the river was already occupied by the Red Army. Now, the Red Army sat here for 5 months, from August 44 till January 1945, but they camped in Praga proper, a few kilometers to the north, and also had more sense than to destroy buildings they could occupy when the winter weather was coming. They stole what they could, but just the movables. So Saska Kepa, and indeed Praga proper, got away with it. The communist rule left it more or less in peace, during which time it acquired this free-thinking intellectual vibe. Think painters, photographers, sculptors, girls with black eye makeup, men in corduroy and tight roll-neck pullovers, that sort of thing. And here is one of them, a local poet, Agnieszka Osiecka, deservedly very popular. She lived into the 1990s, so I remember seeing her around here. She wouldn't know me, but haha, can't run away now. The other thing that escaped is this park, laid out in the 1930s and still showing its pedigree. I think they evacuated her for the war, actually. Oh, I remember this. I used to do that. Minus the smoking. I was a girl guide, for God's sake. So, the park survived the war, despite bombs and aircraft falling on it. One was a Lancaster, looked just like this one, and then survived the communism. Green spaces had the support of the authorities. The working classes needed somewhere to rest. Cotton candy! Yuck, actually, I've never liked that. This used to be a massive open-air pub, until it was closed for attracting the wrong sort. We used to like it. So, you have this very well-behaved early closing cafe, and I believe some pleasure watercraft rentals in the summer. Beyond that pond is Praga Real, old and rough, with some brand shining new hipster spots. I'll show you one day, but for now, well, if you like to stare at bodies of water, you'd best move to Ontario. But even in Saska Kepa, there is a better spot. This is Warsaw's beach. Always has been, especially in the days when you could step into this water without risk of dissolving. No, seriously, it's a dangerous river. I wouldn't swim in it, had it been crystal clear. it's still popular for barbecue, Instagram, or just plain old hanging around. Hey, what's this? Is this emission even legal? And this monstrosity is Poland's new national stadium. I shall not dignify this with a proper frame, especially because it's what you can't see that's interesting about it. It's built on top of another stadium, opened in 1955 and named the 10th Anniversary Stadium for the 10th anniversary of the People's Republic of Poland. Guess what it was made of? Well, you saw the state of the left bank in 1945 last week. Some of the rubble was used to reconstruct the old town and the more historic buildings, which still left an awful lot of rubble to dispose of. So they brought it all here and made a stadium of it. After the breakthrough in 1989, this became modern Europe's largest open-air market. It was beyond belief, sold absolutely everything. I mean, all of Warsaw was like this because suddenly half the nation were out of work and trade is easier to start up than manufacturing, but this was the epicenter. It all got cleaned up before the Euro Football Cup in 2012, and so if you hadn't seen it, you won't believe it. This, the pedestrian subway under the Washington roundabout, is the last echo. 10 years ago, all these shops were doing brisk business and there'd be people just standing around with merchandise along that wall, but that, by now, is a bygone era. Sad in a way. I mean, it's clean, it's pretty, but where is the adventure? Alright, so from the subway you emerged onto Washington roundabout, Rondo Waszyngtona, which on this side is 1960s modernism at its best, or was, when they built this. This house was Warsaw's first house of glass. Nothing but floor-to-ceiling windows on two sides. That, after the Stalinist era, that scattered hundreds of copies of this all over the communist bloc, was such a breath of fresh air. In fact, given that the windows were a single pane, it was rather too much fresh air, especially in the winter. So pretty soon all these windows got bricked up, and today, looking at the styrofoam coated box, you could never tell. These two at least fared better. This one, on the other hand, won the title of Mr. of Warsaw, Warsaw's prettiest building, in 1960. I mean, seriously, what were they drinking? And this is an example of a very Polish institution, bar mleczny, a milk bar. It doesn't sell milk, it sells simple food at very reasonable prices. See one? Go for it. Meanwhile, I shall finish my coffee and go back to town. As we say on the right bank when we mean the city centre. Where shall I go next? Gremlin on the road. Why is it always raining when I come to Saska Kepa? Could actually get worse.